The war had been long and brutal. For years, humanity and the Zethar had fought side by side against the relentless invasion of the Zalcor, a ruthless species whose advance threatened to consume entire star systems. Bound by necessity, humans and Zethar forged an alliance that was as uneasy as it was vital. Together, they pushed back the enemy, reclaiming worlds and breaking the Zalcor's momentum. But peace, when it came, was fragile. The celebrations that followed the Zalcor's retreat echoed across the galaxy. On Earth, people looked to the stars with hope, imagining a future where humans and their allies could build lasting bonds. However, beneath the surface of triumph, shadows were gathering. It began with strange malfunctions in human supply chains. Ships carrying critical materials vanished without a trace. Colonies once secure found themselves vulnerable, their defenses inexplicably disabled. Communications were intercepted or scrambled at crucial moments. Confusion turned to suspicion as the patterns emerged. Someone was sabotaging humanity's efforts. The truth hit like a thunderclap. The Zethar, once trusted allies, had betrayed humanity. They had stolen advanced human technology, disrupted colonies, and sought to claim vast territories for themselves. The betrayal wasn't just a tactical maneuver. It was a calculated bid for power at the Galactic Council, where representatives of both species had once stood side by side. Silence fell. Human delegates demanded answers, but the Zethar remained silent or evasive. The fragile alliance shattered, replaced by deep mistrust and simmering anger. On the bridge of the flagship Intrepid Dawn, Captain Mara Jensen stared at the star charts, her jaw clenched. Her fleet had just returned from a reconnaissance mission over the lost colony of New Arcadia, once a thriving outpost, now a silent graveyard. The damage was deliberate, the signs unmistakable. "We trusted them," Mara said softly, her voice barely carrying over the hum of the ship's engines, "and they stabbed us in the back." Her second-in-command, Commander Reel, nodded grimly. The Zethar gambled everything. They underestimated our resolve, crossed the human worlds. News of the betrayal spread like wildfire. Public outrage grew, but so did a fierce determination. Humanity had faced adversity before: famine, plague, even total war with other species, and each time, it risen stronger. The leadership on Earth convened an emergency session. President Anaya Chen addressed the gathered commanders and diplomats, her voice steady and resolute. "We will not allow this treachery to go unanswered. The Zethar's actions have cost us dearly, but they have also shown us where we must be stronger." She paused, her eyes sweeping the room. "We will reclaim what was stolen. We will secure our colonies, and we will remind the galaxy that humanity does not break under betrayal." Back on Intrepid Dawn, preparations began. Scientists and engineers worked around the clock, analyzing the technology left behind by the Zethar and adapting it for human use. New ships were commissioned, faster and better armed. Soldiers trained with renewed purpose, knowing their mission was no longer just survival. It was reclamation. But it wasn't just about weapons and warships. The betrayal had deeper implications. Trust between species had been shattered, and the galaxy was watching closely. Humanity needed to prove it could stand tall, not only in battle, but as a leader willing to unite others against a common threat. Among the stars, the remnants of the Zethar forces fortified their stolen holdings, unaware that human intelligence networks were already closing in. Scouts detected movements, supply lines, and secret outposts. The hunt had begun. Captain Mara Jensen convened her officers for a briefing. "We will strike where they least expect it," she said, determination burning in her eyes. "Every base we reclaim is a message. Betrayal will not be tolerated. Every stolen asset we seize is proof that humanity's reach extends far beyond Earth." Her crew responded with quiet nods. their faces a mix of exhaustion and fierce pride. They were no longer victims, they were hunters, as the intrepid Dawn slipped into hyperspace. Leaving the devastated colony behind, Mara allowed herself a brief thought. The war had changed. The enemy was no longer just the Zalcor or any outside threat. It was also those who had turned their backs when unity was needed most, and humanity would answer. Not with despair, but with unyielding strength. The scars of betrayal ran deep, but so did humanity's resolve. Across countless star systems, humankind was already moving to reclaim what was lost, and to prepare for what was coming. On the surface of Earth, vast shipyards thrummed with activity. Engineers and technicians worked tirelessly, piecing together new vessels from scraps of salvaged technology and fresh designs born from human ingenuity. The halls echoed with the sounds of construction and innovation, a testament to the unbreakable spirit of a species that refused to yield in the laboratories. Scientists pored over recovered Zethar technology, turning enemy secrets into human strengths. What was once a weapon against humanity now became a tool to protect it. New energy shields, faster engines, and adaptive weaponry began to take shape. The fleet was no longer merely rebuilding, it was evolving. Meanwhile, on the front lines, soldiers and pilots trained with renewed intensity. The betrayal had become a rallying cry across the stars, from the mining colonies on Ganymede to the research outposts near Proxima Centauri. Men and women prepared themselves mentally and physically for the fight ahead. Commander Reel stood on the deck of the Phoenix Rising, overseeing a fleet drill. The ships glided in formation, their sleek hulls gleaming under distant stars. To outsiders, it might have seemed like routine training. But for those present, every maneuver carried the weight of vengeance and justice. Our technology may have been taken, Reel said to a group of officers, but our spirit remains untouched. We adapt, we overcome. Every obstacle, the Zethar put before us, is just another challenge we will master. Word of humanity's resurgence spread quickly. Across the galaxy, transmissions carried tales of human resilience and resourcefulness. The message was clear: betrayal would not break them. It would only make them stronger. But rebuilding the fleet was only one part of the solution. The human leadership understood that reclaiming lost ground required more than brute force. It required intelligence, precision, and strategy. Specialized units were formed, rapid response teams trained for stealth and surgical strikes. Their missions were to locate Zethar strongholds, disrupt supply chains, and recover stolen technology without unnecessary bloodshed. Each success sent a message to the galaxy. Humanity was not just fighting back, they were taking control. Back on Earth, President Anaya Chen addressed the citizens in a broadcast. Her voice was calm, yet fiery with conviction. We face a turning point. The betrayal of the Zethar has tested us, but it has not broken us. Today, we rebuild not only our fleets and defenses, but our determination. We stand united, ready to reclaim our future. Her speech inspired millions. Across human worlds, communities rallied together, craftsmen, engineers, and civilians, all contributing to the war effort in their own way. Hope was no longer a distant dream. It was a shared reality. Yet even as humanity rebuilt, the Zethar consolidated their stolen holdings. Their betrayal had granted them short-term gains, but they underestimated humanity's tenacity and adaptability. Intelligence reports showed growing signs of unrest within Zethar. Ranks dissent sparked by their leadership's reckless gamble. Captain Mara Jensen, aboard the intrepid Dawn, prepared her next mission. This time, the target was a major Zethar supply depot hidden in an asteroid belt on the fringe of human-controlled space. The operation would be swift, decisive, a clear statement of intent. Every victory counts. Mara reminded her crew before the jump. We reclaim what they stole, and we remind them who holds the future. As the ship slipped into hyperspace, the crew's determination was palpable. They knew the road ahead would be long and dangerous, but the betrayal had forged in them something greater than fear, an unshakable will to fight, to survive, and to seize everything the Zethar had taken. Humanity was rising not just as survivors of betrayal, but as champions of justice and unity across the stars. The asteroid belt loomed ahead like a glittering minefield, a cluster of jagged rocks orbiting a dim star. Hidden among these natural barriers was the Zethar's supply depot, a hub for stolen technology and resources critical to their war effort. Captain Mara Jensen's fleet slowed as the intrepid Dawn and its escorts slipped between the massive space rocks. The silence was tense, broken only by the soft hum of engines and the crackle of communications. Sensors indicate minimal external defenses, reported Lieutenant Hannah, scanning the depot's perimeter. But internal security systems are advanced and likely automated. We're walking into a nest. Mara nodded. That's exactly why we hit fast and precise. No prolonged firefights. Our objective is to seize what was stolen and disable their supply lines. The fleet's small strike teams, specially trained for stealth and rapid assault, prepared for deployment. These squads embodied humanity's new approach to warfare: adaptive, intelligent, and relentless. Deploy drones to jam their sensors, Mara ordered. Come silence on all ships until extraction. Within moments, the operation was underway. Stealth fighters darted forward, drones weaving a web of electronic interference. The Zethar systems flickered, confused by the sudden loss of clear data on board the intrepid Dawn. Mara's tactical officers tracked the strike teams as they infiltrated the depot's interior. The teams moved like shadows, disabling security nodes and extracting data caches in one of the lower docks. Sergeant Eli Navarro led his squad through winding corridors, their movements silent but purposeful. The stolen human technology stored. Here was vital advanced power cores, weapon prototypes, and critical AI components. Secure the cargo, Eli whispered into his comm. We're not leaving empty-handed. Suddenly, alarms blared, piercing the quiet with urgent urgency. Automated defenses activated, releasing swarms of patrol drones. Contact, Eli reported. Defenses triggered, engaging. The firefight was fierce but brief. The squads relied on superior tactics and adaptability. Human ingenuity shone as they improvised with makeshift EMP devices, disabling enemy drones with quick thinking. Back on the bridge, Mara watched the battle unfold through the tactical feed. Keep pressure on their systems. Drones maintain. Jamming. Support teams prepare extraction. The strike teams pushed forward, securing every cache they could find. Despite the Zethar's attempts to fight back, humanity's precision and determination held the upper hand. After tense minutes, the last of the stolen assets were loaded onto transport ships. The squads withdrew under heavy fire, moving swiftly toward the extraction point as the intrepid Dawn engaged its engines for a sudden jump out of the asteroid field. Mara allowed herself a brief smile. Mission success. We've taken back what belongs to us. The operation sent ripples across the Coalition's command centers. It was proof that humanity's strategy was working, not just reactive defense, but proactive reclamation. Back on Earth news feeds broadcast the success. Civilians cheered as images of recovered technology and triumphant soldiers spread hope. The betrayal was no longer a wound. It was a call to action that had sparked a new era. But Mara knew this was just the beginning. The Zethar had deep pockets and hidden strongholds. Each victory brought new challenges and dangers. The intelligence gathered from the depot revealed maps of further Zethar bases and supply routes. With every piece of stolen technology recovered, humanity's knowledge grew. They were learning adapting and becoming unstoppable. At a War Council meeting, President Anaya Chen addressed her commanders. This operation shows what humanity can do when we stand united. We are reclaiming what was taken and proving to all that betrayal will not go unanswered. The galaxy will remember that humanity fights not just with weapons, but with relentless spirit. Mara's voice came through the calm, firm and clear. We'll take this fight to every corner of the Zethers network. They cannot hide from justice. As the fleet set course for the next target, the stars outside the viewport shone brighter. Humanity was no longer on the defensive. They were hunters reclaiming their legacy and reshaping the future. The battlefield was not the only front where humanity fought. As the war against the Zethers stretched deeper into the galaxy, it became clear that victory would require more than military might. It demanded allies. Humanity's leadership understood that the Zethers' betrayal had left a trail of broken trust far beyond their own race. Other species, some old friends and some wary strangers, had suffered at the Zethers' hands. But the galaxy was fractured, divided by centuries of rivalry, suspicion, and competing interests. On the diplomatic stage, Ambassador Kale Aaron stood before a council of representatives from the Zelvar, a proud and cautious species known for their strict code of honor. The meeting took place on the neutral station of Elysium Prime, a gleaming hub orbiting a binary star. The Zethers' treachery threatens us all, Kale declared, voice steady. They have stolen technology, violated sovereignty, and broken every trust. Humanity is committed to stopping them, and we invite you to stand with us. The room was filled with murmurs and guarded expressions. The Zelvar delegate, a tall figure draped in ceremonial robes, replied cautiously, "Your words carry weight, Ambassador. But our history with humanity and others has not always been peaceful. Why should we risk our people in your war?" Akale met the gaze calmly. Because the Zethers' betrayal is not isolated. Their greed and aggression endanger the stability of every system. Without unity, none of us will survive the chaos they sow. Across the hall, representatives from the Drakkar and Vexari races exchanged quiet glances. Both had suffered losses from Zethar raids, and both saw the promise of strength in a human-led coalition. The negotiations stretched on for hours, testing patience and trust. Old grievances surfaced, and sharp words were exchanged. But beneath the surface, a shared fear united the council. If the Zethar were left unchecked, the entire galaxy could fall into turmoil. Back on Earth, President Anaya Chen monitored the talks. She knew the stakes. Winning allies was crucial not only to reclaim stolen assets, but to build a future where betrayal could no longer threaten peace. Meanwhile, in the depths of space, Captain Mara Jensen's fleet continued its relentless campaign. Each victory against the Zethers' outposts reinforced humanity's growing reputation. Stories of human courage and resilience spread quickly, reaching even the most distant and skeptical civilizations. As word of humanity's successes reached Elysium Prime, the Council's mood shifted. The tangible evidence of a capable and determined human force helped ease doubts. The potential for a united front began to take shape. At last, the Zelvar delegate rose. "We will join your coalition," he announced, voice ringing through the chamber. "For the sake of peace and survival. We put aside our doubts." A ripple of agreement followed. The Drakkar and Vexari representatives nodded their assent. What had begun as fractured negotiations was now a growing alliance. But not everyone welcomed this new coalition. Hidden factions within the Zethar. Leadership saw the threat growing and reacted with increased hostility. Sabotage and covert attacks against coalition assets grew more frequent, signaling the dangers ahead. Human intelligence agencies intercepted messages hinting at internal Zethar power struggles. Some leaders argued for retreat and diplomacy, while hardliners pushed for all-out war. The galaxy was on the brink of greater conflict. Captain Mara Jensen received an encrypted message from Fleet Command. Diplomatic efforts bear fruit. It said, "Prepare for joint operations with new allies. The war will enter a new phase." Mara allowed herself a brief smile. "We're no longer alone," she told her crew. "Together, we'll hold the line and take back what's ours." As the intrepid Dawn set course to rendezvous with the newly allied fleets, Mara reflected on how far humanity had come. From the shock of betrayal to the forging of new bonds, they had transformed adversity into strength. The road ahead would not be easy. Old enemies lurked, and new challenges awaited. But for the first time in a long while, hope glimmered brightly. In the dark expanse of space, the galaxy was waking up to the power of unity, and humanity was leading the charge. The alliance was forged, and with it came renewed hope, but also fierce resistance. The Zethar, stung by their losses and the growing coalition, unleashed a counteroffensive that rippled through the outer systems. Captain Mara Jensen stood on the bridge of the intrepid Dawn, watching the holographic map pulse with incoming alerts. The Zethar strikes were swift, precise, and relentless, aimed at breaking the fragile unity humanity had worked so hard to build. Multiple attack vectors detected, Lieutenant Hannah reported. They're targeting supply convoys and communication hubs. Mara's jaw tightened. They want to isolate us, weaken our lines. We won't let them. The intrepid Dawn quickly joined the coalition fleet, a gathering of human Zelver Drakkar and Vexari vessels, each bearing the scars of recent skirmishes. Commanders exchanged strategies, blending diverse tactics into a coordinated defense. On the front lines, battles flared in the cold vacuum of space. Fleets maneuvered with precision, laser beams and missile volleys cutting through the darkness. But unlike the earlier human raids, these engagements were brutal and costly. Enemy flagship detected, Real announced. Yes. Zethar Command is committing major resources. Mara nodded. Focus fire on the flagship. Take it down, and we disrupt. Their coordination, the coalition's combined firepower, concentrated on the massive Zethar vessel. It was heavily armored, bristling with weaponry, and capable of launching swarms of attack drones. Yet human innovation and allied tactics were proving deadly as the flagship faltered under the assault. Mara ordered boarding teams to prepare. Taking the command ship would be a decisive blow and an opportunity to gather intelligence directly. From the enemy below decks, the boarding party moved swiftly, clearing corridors with practiced efficiency. Zethar defenders fought fiercely, but were disoriented by the coordinated assault. Every inch of progress came with the cost of lives and exhaustion. Meanwhile, in the fleet's command center, President Anaya Chen watched the unfolding battle through live feeds. "This fight tests our resolve," she said. "We must hold together, or all we've built will crumble." The boarding teams reached the command core. Among the captured data terminals was information on secret Zethar supply lines and hidden bases. These discoveries offered a glimpse into the enemy's vulnerabilities, a chance to strike deeper and harder. But the cost of the counteroffensive was clear. The coalition suffered casualties, ships lost or damaged, and soldiers fallen. The brutal combat reminded everyone that this war was far from over. On a battered transport ship, Sergeant Eli Navarro tended to wounded comrades. "We fight not just for revenge," he said quietly. "We fight for every world they tried to steal, for every life they tried to break." Back on the intrepid Dawn, Mara regrouped with her officers. "We've dealt a serious blow," she said, "but the Zethar will regroup. We must prepare for their next move and be ready to strike back harder." The coalition's leadership agreed on a new strategy to target the Zethar's command infrastructure, cutting their ability to coordinate and resupply. Intelligence from the boarding operation revealed a heavily fortified base on a remote Muna fortress that could decide the war's direction. As fleets made ready for the assault, The coalition's diplomats continued their work. Maintaining unity amid the stresses of war was a delicate balance. Leaders shared not only plans, but hopes for a future where trust could be rebuilt. For humanity, the stakes had never been higher. The betrayal that once threatened to shatter. Their spirit had instead forged them into leaders of a new galactic alliance, one prepared to fight fiercely for justice, freedom, and survival. The battle for the galaxy was far from over. But as the coalition prepared to launch its next offensive, there was a quiet certainty among them. Together, they could overcome anything. The remote moon hung cold and silent against the backdrop of a distant Stera fortress carved into its rocky surface, shrouded by dense ion storms. This was the heart of the Zethers' command infrastructure, the nerve center that kept their sprawling war machine coordinated and lethal. Captain Mara Jensen stood aboard the intrepid Dawn, the flagship, leading the coalition fleet, her eyes fixed on the ominous silhouette of the fortress below. Years of planning, battles, and sacrifices had led to this moment. "This is the critical strike," Mara said to her officers. "Take down their command hub, and we cripple their ability to wage war." The coalition fleet spread out, positioning itself strategically beyond the moon's harsh electromagnetic storms. The Zelvar warships, sleek and heavily armored, flanked the human cruisers, while Drakkar missile frigates took up defensive positions. Vexari stealth fighters darted like shadows, ready to strike with precision. "Electronic interference is intense," Lieutenant Hannah reported. "Our sensors are struggling, but comms are holding." Mara nodded. "We expected this. Stay sharp and adapt." The fleet launched its initial barrage-targeted energy. Pulses and missile salvos designed to disable the fortress's external defenses and communication arrays. Explosions lit the void as turrets and shielding generators were systematically destroyed. Suddenly, automated defense drones surged from the fortress, swarming the coalition ships with relentless attacks. The fleet responded with coordinated countermeasures, point defense lasers, interceptor drones, and tight formations that minimized exposure. On the bridge of the intrepid Dawn, the tension was palpable. Mara's voice was calm, but commanding. "Keep focus. Our strike teams are deploying." Below in the storm-ravaged atmosphere, specialized boarding crafts descended rapidly, their hulls cutting through turbulent winds. Mara watched the feeds as teams led by Sergeant Eli Navarro and Commander Real prepared to breach the fortress. Inside, the boarding squads faced immediate resistance. The Zether defenders, aware that their command center was under attack, fought with desperation and determination. Corridors filled with smoke and the echoes of battle. "Push forward," Eli commanded. "We need control of the central nexus." In the heart of the fortress, communications arrays blinked erratically, struggling against the onslaught. The coalition's goal was clear: sever the fortress's link to the wider Zethar forces, back in orbit. Mara coordinated with the fleet. "Keep suppressing their reinforcements. We can't let them regroup." As hours passed, the boarding teams overcame wave after wave of defenders. The fighting was brutal and close quarters. But humanity's tenacity and the coalition's combined training carried the day. Finally, Eli's squad reached the central command chamber. Using specialized equipment, they initiated a shutdown of the fortress's systems. Lights flickered and died as the Zethers' control networks collapsed. With the command hub disabled, the fortress's defenses faltered. Coalition ships intensified their assault, blasting key structures and securing the moon's surface. On the intrepid Dawn, Mara allowed herself a brief moment of satisfaction. "We've struck a major blow," she said. "This will send a clear message." But even as the fortress fell silent, intelligence officers intercepted new transmissions. Fragments of Zether fleets were regrouping on the far side of the galaxy, preparing for a counterattack. President Anaya Chen addressed the coalition leaders in a secure channel. Our victory here is significant, but the war is not over. We must remain vigilant and united. Mara nodded. We'll be ready. This assault shows what we can accomplish together. As the coalition fleet regrouped and prepared for their next move, the galaxy watched closely. What had begun as a betrayal was now a full-scale campaign to reclaim stolen honor and justice. Humanity and its allies had transformed from victims into victors, proving that unity and resolve could overcome even the deepest wounds. The road ahead remained dangerous, but for the first time in years, hope shone brightly in the void. The victory on the remote moon had shaken the Zethers' confidence, but it had not broken their will. In hidden war rooms far beyond human-controlled space, the Zethar High Council convened in urgent secrecy. Their once commanding presence was now shadowed by panic and fury. Counselor Varash slammed his clawed hand against the holographic display showing the destroyed fortress. This is unacceptable. Our command infrastructure lies in ruins. Our forces are scattered and our enemies grow stronger. His fellow counselors exchanged grim looks. The betrayal of the humans had been a calculated risk, one they now regretted. The coalition's swift and coordinated strikes had cost them dearly. The humans and their allies underestimate our resolve, hissed General Cathal, a veteran of countless battles. We will strike back where they least expect it. Still control the Outer Rift cluster. We will use it to cut their supply lines and force them into retreat. Meanwhile, Captain Mara Jensen and the coalition fleet were recovering from their recent triumph. Unaware of the storm gathering in the Outer Rift, the region was a dangerous stretch of space, filled with treacherous nebulae and gravitational anomalies perfect for Morses as the fleet plotted its course through the Outer Rift to consolidate gains and protect vital trade routes. Sensors picked up unusual activity. Ships were gathering in the Shadow Zethar warships, laying in wait. Enemy fleet detected an ambush formation, Lieutenant Hannah reported, tension rising in her voice. They're using the nebulae to mask their approach. Mara's eyes sharpened. Battle stations, prepare for engagement. We won't be caught off guard. The coalition fleet adjusted formations, activating electronic countermeasures and scanning for enemy vessels hidden within the gas clouds. The silence before the storm was thick and heavy. Suddenly, the Zethar struck. From the nebulae erupted a barrage of plasma torpedoes and ion cannons, tearing through the coalition's screening ships. The ambush was brutal and effective, forcing the fleet to scatter under heavy fire, shields failing on the Eclipse. A voice shouted over the comms, taking hull damage. Mara gritted her teeth. Hold formation. Target their command frigate. If we take it down, the ambush collapses. The battle became a desperate dance through the swirling gas clouds. Pilots relied on instinct and training, weaving through debris and energy blasts. Coalition ships coordinated, tightly sharing targeting data and repairing each other's damaged systems. Amid the chaos, Ara ordered a small task force to flank the Zethar fleet from the rear. Take them by surprise, hit their engines, and disrupt their formation. Lieutenant Hannah led the strike team, slipping through the nebula's edge. Their precision attacks crippled several key vessels, turning the tide. Slowly but surely, the coalition regained control. The Zethar fleet, once aggressive and confident, began a strategic withdrawal. Coalition ships pursued, pressing their advantage, while maintaining formation. As the last enemy vessels fled, Mara allowed herself a moment of relief. We survived their worst. Back on Earth, President Anaya Chen addressed the public. Her words were steady, acknowledging both the cost and the progress. The battle in the Outer Rift shows the dangers ahead. But it also proves that humanity and our allies stand strong, united against those who betray trust and peace. In the aftermath, the coalition reinforced defenses and resumed patrols across vulnerable sectors. The Zethers' desperation had only intensified the conflict, but it had also galvanized the Alliance's determination. Mara met with other commanders in the fleet's war room. "We've weathered their ambush. Now it's time to strike deeper into their territory. Their leadership is fractured. We need to exploit that weakness." Plans formed quickly for a decisive campaign targeting the Zethar capital Systema. Bold move that could end the war or escalate it beyond control. The galaxy held its breath in the quiet moments before the next storm. Humanity's leadership and its allies prepared for what might be the most critical chapter yet. The betrayal that had once nearly shattered them now fueled a relentless pursuit of justice. The final reckoning was drawing near. The Zethar capital system, a sprawling cluster of orbital cities and fortified space stations, was the heart of their empire. Capturing it would mean toppling the High Council and ending the war. But it was also their strongest bastion, defended by fleets and ground forces loyal to the last. Captain Mara Jensen stood on the bridge of the intrepid Dawn, the coalition flagship, as the fleet formed up for the assault. Beside her, commanders from the Zelvar Drakkar and Vexari prepared their own forces. The weight of history pressed down on every soul. "Today, we fight not just for victory," Mara said, her voice steady. "We fight for every betrayal we endured, for every life lost, for the future we deserve. Let's finish this." The fleet surged forward, breaking through the system's outer defenses. The battle erupted with brutal intensity. Energy beams lit the darkness. Missiles streaked between massive ships and boarding pods launched toward enemy stations. Despite the ferocity, the coalition's coordination was unmatched. Each species brought unique strengths, combined with humanity's adaptability and tactical ingenuity. Amid the chaos, Ara led a boarding party on the central command station, the nerve center, controlling the entire capital's defenses. The corridors were a war zone, but the boarding teams pushed forward with determination. Inside the High Council's chamber, Councillor Varash confronted Mara face to face. "You think this ends here?" he snarled. "Even if you win, the galaxy will remember our power." Mara met his gaze without hesitation. "The galaxy will remember what you lost, the trust you betrayed, the lives you destroyed. We're here to end the cycle." A fierce struggle ensued, but the boarding teams overwhelmed the Zethar defenders. Mara's forces seized control of the command systems, shutting down defenses and communications. With the capital vulnerable, coalition fleets pressed the attack, overwhelming the remaining Zethar ships. The battle reached its climax as the flagship of the High Council was disabled and forced to surrender. President Anaya Chen addressed the galaxy from Earth. Her voice broadcast across every world. "Today marks the end of a dark chapter. The Zethar's betrayal was a wound we felt deeply. But united, we have healed that wound with strength and resolve. This victory belongs to all who fought for justice and peace." The aftermath was a time of reckoning and rebuilding. The Zethar leadership was disbanded, and many factions sought new paths toward peace. The coalition remained vigilant, forging stronger ties and promising never to allow betrayal to go unanswered again. Captain Mara Jensen stood on the bridge one last time before the fleet began its journey home. The stars outside seemed brighter, full of promise. "We seized everything they possessed," Mara reflected quietly. "Not just their technology and territory, but their power to harm. And in doing so, we reclaimed our future." The galaxy, once fractured and wary, was now united by a lesson hard won. That betrayal might spark war, but unity, courage, and the human spirit could shape peace.